My name is Jeff Olson. I competed in two of them. I met my wife at one of them. She's my gold medal, but thank you for spending a few minutes here tonight. About 5 years ago, the Game Changers movie came out, and it was a provocative, visual medium on the power of plants as it relates to human performance. On the heels of that, the International Olympic Committee got inundated by athletes all over the world to get the science, understand why plants make the body perform. And as it turns out, plants make the body perform better for elite athletes in Paris. This is in these upcoming weeks. And they also help any and all of us. So that's really the context for tonight. And with that, if you look at the GOATs in sport and you study their careers as they get into the second half of their career, when they're trying to find like when you're young and talented, you're just gripping it and ripping it. But from Michael Phelps to Usain Bolt to Michaela Schifrin to Tom Brady to Lionel Messi, Serena. Anyway, if you study them, they eat mostly plants. And why do they do that? Well, they do that because in the game of gains, more plants equals more performance, and they adapt. When the best in the world find a better way, they adapt. The cool thing about the adaptive capacity, anyone can adapt. And my goal here tonight is to get you maybe filled with some knowledge that will help you take action, because knowledge is the booby prize here, okay? Knowledge. And so in the game of gains, we're going to talk about food conditioning with plant food, nutrient-dense food, and a way to support that pursuit with functional food and plant powders. And so I like to talk about human performance for anyone. And the best example of human performance I can think of is pregnancy. That is human performance. It can be better circulation for a diabetic, more energy all day for parents. It can be for those you love, those you hate, anyone and everyone, across the spectrum. And for our athletes, it's obvious, but that performance narrative, most people don't think of themselves as, I don't do performance. Well, your body's performing every day for you, and you want it to perform on demand, right? Food makes the body work. Good food makes the body work better, and great food makes the body perform. And over time, great food makes the body perform on demand all the time until you leave this planet, right? And that's the game, is we're living longer, but our health span is not equaling our lifespan, if you will. And so we all, who am I looking at here, right? It could be Simone Biles. It could be your grandma. It could be a baby in utero. It could be your neighbor, anyone, right? And there's a spectrum from poor to peak, right? And that spectrum, think of it as a left to right spectrum. And poor, you got chronic disease and healing, and somewhere in the middle, you get to kind of baseline, and the medical world calls that homeostasis. And that's just like the prevention of disease. That's the old definition of health, the prevention of disease. Well, what's everything to the right, right? Well, that's durable health, as I call it. Anything to the right of center is durable health, fit physiology, peak physiology. And why wouldn't you or any of the people that you love want peak physiology? Well, a lot of people think I got to do all that hard stuff, right? Well, as it turns out, the hard stuff comes from daily habits, the daily do. And when it comes to physiology, nutrient-dense foods, plant foods, drive physiology to the right of this spectrum. All right, food does three things in the body. Pretty simple. It fuels us, it builds us. It's food at work. We're familiar with it. The building materials of proteins and fats, and the fueling of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. These are macronutrient conversations. The blind spot in sports nutrition, the blind spot in human nutrition is really the micros. What does it do from a performance standpoint, from an optimizing standpoint, from a better, like you're here and you want to get better, that's just a better result. And the verb that I use to attach to the function of what's going on is it's conditioning your physiology. It's conditioning physiological function. And if you think of yourself as kind of this analogy of an iceberg, and what we see, the body, the physical body is kind of above the iceberg, but we know performance comes from the inside out, right? Health comes from the inside out. Vitality comes from the inside out. And if you look at us and deconstruct us and go underneath the hood to a deeper level, right? We are a network system of organs and tissues and cells and organelles and genetics and molecules and elements. How does all that stack up, and what impacts, what kinds or what pieces of the food that you eat makes all of this stuff, conditions this stuff to work for you? Well, as it turns out, that is the domain of micronutrition. It has no calories, doesn't mean it's not good, or doesn't mean it's not important for you. Macros, above the water, carbs, proteins, fat. Micros, condition. And what kind of micronutrition are we talking about that conditions all of those systems? It's phytonutrients and adaptogens and antioxidants and minerals and enzymes and on and on and on. Tens of thousands of molecules that provide just-in-time inventory for your body to condition itself over time. Food does things for the body over time, right? And so you pick any of these things, and do you want them to, if they're great, do you want them to stay great? If you need improvement, do you want them to get better? Well, as it turns out, the micronutrition, the phytochemicals found in plants make this stuff work. Now, who am I looking at here? Another sort of visual. Well, it could be, it could be any Olympian headed to Paris, but it could be you, right? You don't know. And the cool thing about it is we're more alike than we are different when it comes to human physiology, and the nutrient dense matter makes all of this stuff come to life. When I was an athlete, I thought of myself as a Ferrari, but as it turns out, on game day, I want to be a Ferrari, but the 99.9% of the rest of the time, I need to be a truck. I need to condition hard, recover fast, and do it again. Play hard, work hard, recover. Like recovery is a competitive advantage. If you want a competitive advantage for your body to recalibrate, rejuvenate overnight and come up where you have energy all day from start to finish and you're on point and going, that human performance occurs in recovery deep at night. And the food that we eat recreates us, right? The macronutrients help us build and fuel, but the micronutrients condition all of us to have that physiological vigor, that vim and vigor. And so I want to be a truck in my middle age. Here's the rub. In the modern world, to prevent disease, 5 servings a day. How you doing? How your friends doing? How your family doing? How are those you love doing? How are people doing in the modern world? 7 if you want durable health. If you're a CrossFitter or you're in the gym, you're going hard. 9 servings. Athletes, double digit. And here's where the rub is for athletes. Produce, fruits and vegetables have low caloric content, low protein content, but it's really great. You just got to eat more of it. But the fiber oftentimes prevents the athletes from getting 12 servings because they just feel satiated, right? So they're not getting that 12 servings, and they need that energy, then fuel and protein. But so the low man or the short man on the totem pole is the micronutrition, because they don't understand how it is in the critical path of their body's performance. And that's what we're excited about to bring to athletes in the modern era, and the applied science and first principles. And so, in the 20th century, went to the multivitamin to try to fill in the gap. Well, that's 20th century technology. I'm asking you to adapt to a higher way, a better way, really at the forefront of technology. And what I mean by that is, this is a simple way to frame it. You've got supplements and then you got food. The supplement facts label on the left looks like it has more stuff in it, right? The food label, the nutrition facts label, it's pretty paltry, pretty pathetic. It doesn't look like it has hardly anything in it. And athletes are looking for an ergogenic aid, an ergogenic advantage. And that's a fancy word. See the definition down there at the bottom. Something that is an aid that enhances physical performance or stamina or recovery, like blood doping. That enhances performance, but it's illegal, right? But the biotechnology of nutrient-dense foods is one of the most majestic. I call it AI, nature's AI. It's adaptive intelligence, right? But if you look at these labels and you had to pick one, what's behind door number 1, door number 2, turns out that's what would be on a multivitamin, jacked up with all these milligrams. And that's what you would get if you bought a bag of apples. And intuitively, that there's more stuff in that apple than just that. Well, as it turns out, these are some of the phytonutrients, phytochemicals, all these different colors that are in an apple. These are the phytonutrients, and it doesn't mean anything in a day if you need an apple in a day, maybe even in a couple of days or a week or a month. But if you over time are consistent with this habit, that's where that relentless daily execution of fundamentals, that's a sort of fancy word to say your habits over time bring you that, deliver to you that competitive advantage because this conditioning effect. And that slope up is the conditioning effect of your physiology. And so the sort of invitation to adapt is sort of shifting from a not food-based approach. If you're not getting it done, if you can't, you don't, or you won't, or you need support. You know, I'm in the game, I'm a foodie, I do this stuff every day, and I need support because I don't get 12 servings a day or 9 servings a day. I try, but I just don't, right? So the not food support is old school. It's the multivitamin, and food first support, right, would be what, right? It's food technology, and daily plant food support is sort of the name of the game. So if you look at these fruits and vegetables, what are the powders? What are the powders? Well, the fruits and vegetables with the water removed. Pretty simple. Where's vitamin C in that? Where's resveratrol in that, right? Where's calcium in that? Turns out it's all in the synergy, nature's AI, just in time for you. And as I say, you need to pound plant powders. I've been pounding plant powders for 23 years. Plant matter matters, and more matters. Like all of this plant matter, right? It's not an isolated, fragmented milligram cocktail of nutrients, 30 nutrients in a multivitamin. It's tens of thousands of phytonutrients and phytochemicals and adaptogens. And plant powders sit in this category called functional food. And that's just a fancy word to say food on purpose. You're taking this food for a reason, right? This functional food, this brand name that you all know what it is, it's Juice Plus, but it has a food label, an FDA food label, right? If you're going to buy a functional food product, it needs to have a food label. Point number one. But here's the definition. You can read it. It's like fortified, enriched, enhanced. It's food that has some sort of use that's beneficial and has evidence and rigorous scientific substantiation. And here's another way to think of the multivitamin versus plant powders. 20th century black and white TV, that's the multivitamin. High resolution plasma TV, high resolution nutrition. Okay, this is functional plant powders. It's the full spectrum of colors. It's not just the greens. There's more than the greens. There's the reds and the purples and the yellows and the oranges, right? It's more than just the greens. It's the full spectrum of produce, right? The full rainbow. Eat the rainbow, right? And that's what these plant powders. So the OG, the leader, the pioneer in plant powders is Juice Plus. They've been working with farmers for 30 years, heirloom farmers. They've innovated around how do we harvest this and in a low temperature, oxygen-free environment, remove the water, right? And then what's left? What do we do with that matter, that precious matter, right? How do we do as little damage as possible? Well, turns out those powders, when exposed to air, like air, time, heat, and oxygen degrade food. You cut an apple, starts to go brown. The oxidative process starts to break down food. The brilliance of the Juice Plus approach with their plant powders is they decided to encapsulate these powders to give it an oxygen barrier. Brilliant. It preserves the potency, preserves the nutrient density and the power of all of that. It's not frozen. It's just in an oxygen-free environment, right? The produce is frozen at the farm. It's taken to a juicing facility, yada, 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 yada. All of that nutrient density encapsulated. So the Juice Plus family, the Juice Plus portfolio, if you will, when it comes to functional food is fruit, veggie, berry powders, plant shakes, and then in the last 5 years, plant omegas. Turns out omega 3, 4, 5, 3, 5, 6, 7, and 9, you can get from plants. Take out the middle fish, go straight to the source. Brilliant, right? And so as an innovator, as a pioneer, and a leader in the functional food domain, or best in class in plant powders. And these plant powders are beyond organic. It's a fancy word for saying it's wicked safe, right? Wicked safe. Probably one of the safer things you're going to put in your body because it's actually tested. We have athletes competing in Paris. I think we're the functional food of Olympians. That was the title of the flyer. We are the functional food of Olympians. We have athletes have been pounding these plant powders, getting ready for the Paris Games. And one of the first things they want to know is it safe? NSF sports certification tells you it's better than organic because it's actually tested, right? And so when it gets down to the science of these plant powders, the prove it part, right? Sounds good, makes sense, prove it. Well, we've got a lot of bedtime reading material if you're interested in terms of published efficacy, All right. We've got published efficacy on brain performance, cognitive processing, memory, attention. Like, who doesn't want more of this? This is performance, functional plant food performance, right? The compounding effect of this nutrient-dense matter. You want a fit microbiome? Plant powders, functional plant powders daily. Turns out research shows that if you pound these plant powders, your vascular capacity improves. Like, that's performance. Who doesn't want more of that, right? Not just for athletes. Like, think of a diabetic who wants more, circulation in their digits, right? You want more circulation. Turns out these plant powders in a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical trial did that, right? Helped the vascular, gave you vascular capacity. Effective epigenetics. Do you want this? You want the good stuff to go on, and you want the bad stuff to go off, right? Turns out we help the good switches come on and the bad switches stay off, right? Powerful, powerful, powerful. I call it the performance stack. You want all of this physiology to stack up, right? In an optimized way. And this company, this brand is the leader, the best in class, and it proves it through a relationship with research institutions all over the world. You're known by the company you keep. And if you're a health practitioner, a scientist, or you're into this stuff, we got all kinds of published journals for you to go deep. And this is, take a step back, and this is the forest. You can pick apart a tree and look at any tree, but at the end of the day, it's the most clinically researched, peer-reviewed, published functional food in the world, period, full stop, end of story, right? Everyone else, if they're going to lambast it or call it, whatever, blah, blah, they just, bless their heart, they just don't know what the heck they're talking about. 45 plus clinical studies across all of these journals. And now I want to end with just kind of getting beyond the science. Like, it is intellectually rigorous. If you want to go down that path, you will be met with first principles and truth and science and all that. But as I said at the beginning, knowledge is the booby prize. It is the application of science. It's where the rubber hits the road. And beyond science is the doing. Beyond, you know what you know, but what you do what you know. And as it turns out, athletes understand this. Athletes understand that you're going to be held accountable by the rules of the game you choose to play. And in the game of life, and in the game of physiological vitality, nutrient density is the most potent predictor of good physical outcomes. It is the most potent predictor of great outcomes physiologically, nutrient density, micronutrition, over time. And if your body is your business when you're an athlete, the rules of the game is maximize the capacity of your physiology. If you're a parent, you're a mom, or you're a kid, or you're in utero, or you're pregnant, you want game too, right? This is a way to access more game for your physiology. Now, as it turns out, in the invitation to adapt, the Human Performance Center of Excellence, the United States Performance Center in Raleigh, works with national teams that are a subset of the U.S. Olympic Committee. And those national teams established a functional food performance protocol, the Juice Plus Performance Protocol, and all the athletes coming through that center, hundreds of athletes, they're on the protocol. We do blood work before, later, see the nutrient density of the blood plasma, and they're tracking these athletes. These are all the national teams, the national governing bodies that work at the Performance Center, and all of the athletes are on this protocol. So when I say it's the functional food of Olympians, it really is. Here's some of the athletes at the Performance Center, and they're on the protocol. Cool thing is you can be the protocol too. Take the plant powders, do the omegas, do the shakes daily, do over time. When I started in early 2000s, the earth didn't move for me in the first weeks, months. Year and a half later, I'm like, man, I'm recovering faster. My skin's better. I'm losing less hair. And over, the last couple decades, I'm 58, man, but I play old man soccer with like the next generation, and they want to be like me when they're 58, right? So it's that compounding effect over time where you get that competitive advantage. This is the protocol right here. Fruit, vegetable, berry powder, shakes, omegas, simple. But you got to shift away from traditional supplements and isolated fragmented molecules to nutrient-dense matter. And as I said, I just want to be a truck, man. I want physiological durability. Who doesn't want more of that? And these plant powders are becoming standard of care. I'm going to speak to that in just a moment with an exciting conference that's coming up. It's great hygiene just in the wellness world. And in the fitness world is looking for applied science, and athletes are looking for a competitive advantage. And it works for anyone. How cool is that? Right? How cool is that? Best way to, figure it out is become your own guinea pig. Experience it yourself and get going on with this daily functional food. Let me close by kind of wrapping up on the heels or just before the Olympic Games started. When the Game Changers movie came out, it was a catalytic moment for me. I'd been sort of speaking about this for 15 years prior, and I kind of felt like John the Baptist out in the wilderness about food and performance and you and anyone. And then this cool, sexy movie came along, and I said, oh my gosh, we got to follow through on that. I cold called the producer, and I said, you got to do a conference. You got to do a Game Changers conference that helps people educate and learn the science, and bring in doctors and physicians and elite athletes. And anyway, long and the short of it is, that vision, that dream is coming to fruition. Several of the doctors from the Game Changers movie, several of the Olympians from the Game Changers movie produced this document for the Olympic Committee. That was kind of a plant-based playbook for the International Olympic Committee that they dispense to national teams around the world. And I engaged with the Olympians and the docs. And I said, we got to do a conference. We got to do a conference on the heels of the Game Changers and bring together physicians, bring together exercise sports scientists, bring sports dietitians, bring together anyone who wants to come and be immersed in a day of hardcore science to fill you up with intellectual rigor to say, this has got game and I need to go back into my community and make a difference. And so pulling the medical community, which tends to be only positioned around homeostasis and the prevention of disease, and helping doctors craft a narrative of working with a diabetic about performance, working with a chronic disease about performance. Let's focus on getting your body to work and work better and not focus on this thing that's wrong. Let's get the rest of your body working better. And I'm proud to say that the Plantrition Project has been a premier CME accredited medical education conference for the last 15 plus years. The founder of it is Dr. Scott Stoll, who you see right here. Turns out Dr. Scott Stoll is an Olympian as well. He was in the Game Changers movie. And Dotsie Bosch, who was, she won a silver medal at 38. The three of us got together, and in September in LA, if you want to come for a day right before this big international conference for health professionals and attend this conference, we're going to immerse ourselves in a full day of hardcore science around how plants make the body perform. And so with that, if you want to learn more about that, you can go to either of these two websites. It's PBNHC, which stands for Plant-Based Nutrition Healthcare Conference /workshops, or projectadapt.io. And you can register, and I'd love to see you in LA. I'm hosting the event. And what's meaningful to me is when I got into this narrative, one of my goals was to help pull sports nutrition into the 21st century. And this is kind of the culmination of that, because we'll have doctors with docs and jocks and anyone who's interested in getting the body to work better, and work on demand across all fields. And so I'm excited, and I hope to see you there. So with that, I will peace out. God bless. Have a great evening, and happy summer. We'll see you soon on the field of play.